It is 1564, Cumbria, England. A shepherd is walking the fells after a storm. A tree has come down in the night, roots ripped clean from the hillside. According to legend, in the mud beneath the roots is something he has never seen before, black, heavy, and it doesn't burn. He rubs it across his hand. It marks dark, clean, almost like lead, but darker. He doesn't know what it is. Nobody does. Not yet. Within a decade, it will be the most closely guarded substance in England. I'm Aidan Thomas of Hidden History, and this is a story of how we learn how to write things down in class. This is the history of the pencil. Before graphite, writing was already a complicated business. For most of human history, scribes used a thin rod of lead or an alloy of lead and tin pressed against papyrus or vellum. It left a faint, silvery line, usable, barely. Artists pushed it further. By the 15th century, a technique called silver point had become the mark of a master. You drew a fine wire across a specially prepared paper. The line was delicate, precise, and almost impossible to erase. Leonardo da Vinci used it. Albrecht Dürer used it. Raphael used it. Almost impossible to erase is a serious problem when you're still working something out. The stylus was a tool of commitment. You didn't sketch with it, you committed. Then, in a hillside in northwest England, a shepherd changed everything. That black substance under the tree wasn't lead. It was graphite, a crystalline form of pure carbon. Nothing like it had ever been found in Europe before. And graphite was a revelation. It left a darker mark than lead. It could be sharpened to a point. With effort, it could be erased. Wrapped first in string, then in hollowed out cedar, it became the first pencil. Word spread fast. Merchants used it to write orders. Shepherds used it to mark their sheep. Artists used it to sketch without committing. It was, suddenly, indispensable. Queen Elizabeth I's advisors grasped the stakes immediately. The crown moved to control the mine. Access was restricted. The Borrowdale mine was only permitted to operate for a few weeks each year to keep supply scarce and prices high. They were sitting on what would become one of the most consequential industrial discoveries of the century, and they knew exactly what they had. Scarcity, of course, had other plans. The restrictions didn't stop demand, they just created a black market. Mine workers were bribed, traders packed graphite into lead-lined boxes to disguise its weight. Middlemen moved it across the North Sea into Germany, France, and the Netherlands, where pencil makers were waiting, desperate for a reliable supply. The crown kept tightening its grip. In 1752, Parliament passed an act making the theft of Borrowdale graphite a criminal offense, punishable by hard labor, punishable by transportation. Transportation, sentenced to the other side of the world for stealing pencil lead. And still, the smuggling continued because the profits were extraordinary. Borrowdale graphite was worth more per ounce than most metals. The most powerful government in the world was losing a war against people who really wanted to write things down. By the way, if you've made it this far, you're clearly the kind of person who finds this stuff fascinating. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. Now, back to our story. Meanwhile, in Germany, the city of Nuremberg was doing something remarkable. Cut off from reliable Borrowdale graphite, German craftsmen improvised. They blended lower grade graphite with sulfur, antimony, and a resin, inferior to the British product, but good enough. By 1662, Nuremberg had become the pencil capital of the world. Thousands of workers, dozens of workshops, an entire economy built on a small stick of compressed black powder in a cedar sleeve. What the Nuremberg story rarely mentions, it was built on smuggled graphite, on a gray economy that Parliament had been trying for decades to shut down, and it was shaped decisively by one man who had no business building it. Friedrich Sveltler was a craftsman operating outside the guild system, and in 17th century Nuremberg, that mattered. Pencil making was legally split between two separate guilds. Lead cutters shaped the graphites, carpenters enclosed it in wood. Crossover was prohibited. Stettler ignored the rules. He figured out how to do both raw material to finished pencil in a single operation. The guilds fought him for years. He kept going. The name Stettler is still printed on pencils today. He just doesn't usually get the credit. The man who truly invented the pencil as we use it today, the man whose formula appears inside every pencil currently being made, almost nobody has heard of him. His name is Nicolas Jacques Conté. Conté was a French military scientist. He lost his left eye in a hydrogen gas explosion earlier in his career, which is bold and slightly alarming. He was brilliant, creative, and serving in the army of Napoleon Bonaparte in the 1790s. The military arithmetic was stark. Napoleon was at war with Britain. Britain controlled the world's only known supply of high-quality graphite. France was entirely cut off, and the French army needed pencils for maps, for engineering drawings, for military correspondence. Conté was ordered to find a solution. He found one in 6 days. He ground graphite, even low-grade graphite, into a fine powder, mixed it with clay, and fired the mixture in a kiln. The result could be shaped into rods, encased in wood, and used to write. The discovery ran deeper than a wartime fix. By adjusting the ratio of clay to graphite, you could control the hardness of the pencil. More clay, a harder, lighter line. More graphite, a softer, darker mark. All of a sudden, you could now grade a pencil. The HB and HB system we still use today, 2H, HB, 4B, traces directly back to Nicolas Jacques Conté. He patented the process in 1795. He never became famous for it. The brand that became the household name, Faber-Castell, built its empire on this formula. Conté built the foundation. Faber-Castell took the stage. The man who lays the foundation rarely gets to name the building. The history of the pencil has a rather unlikely chapter. In America, graphite was plentiful, but impure. American pencils smudged. They were considered inferior to their European counterparts. Nobody could agree on why. Henry David Thoreau could. Before he was the man who lived alone in the woods and wrote one of the most celebrated books in American literature, Thoreau worked in his father's pencil factory in Concord, Massachusetts. He studied the problem. He spent time at the Harvard Library. He experimented. He landed, by research or parallel discovery, on Conté's clay graphite formula and adapted it for the lower grade graphite available in New England. The Thoreau Pencil Factory became the best in America. Their pencils finally competed with the European ones. And then Thoreau stepped away. He said he had no interest in making a better pencil once he had already done it. There were other things to think and write about. In 1845, he went to Walden Pond. He wrote, of course, with a pencil. However, one element was still missing. For most of the pencil's history, the eraser was a separate object. People used breadcrumbs, stale bread, small blocks of rubber. If you were writing with a pencil, your eraser lived somewhere else entirely. In 1858, a Philadelphia stationer named Hyman Lipman had what seemed, in retrospect, an obvious idea. He attached an eraser to the end of a pencil. He patented it. He later sold that patent for $100,000, an extraordinary sum at the time. The Supreme Court eventually invalidated the patent, combining two existing objects it ruled did not constitute a novel invention. The man who bought the patent, a stationer named Reckendorf, lost his investment. The eraser-tipped pencil survived. The pencil, as we know it, was complete. The pencil was complete, but it still needed an American story. Joseph Dixon was a Massachusetts inventor who had spent decades obsessed with graphite, not pencils, crucibles for steel furnaces, lubricants for machinery, powder for electrotyping. He understood graphite the way a chemist understands an element. After the Civil War, Dixon's company built the first truly industrial pencil factory in America. Machines that could cut, shape, and finish tens of thousands of pencils a day. Dixon died in 1869. He never saw what came next. In 1873, his company introduced a new line named after the graphite mines near Lake Champlain in upstate New York, near a place called Ticonderoga, a Mohawk word, a Revolutionary War fort, a name that sounded like America. The yellow paint came in 1913. The green and yellow ferrule followed, and the number 2, the one in every classroom, every exam room, every pencil case in America, was the Ticonderoga. From a shepherd in a Cumbrian hillside to a fort on Lake Champlain, the pencil had found its home. Today, around 14 billion pencils are produced every year. The average pencil can draw a line approximately 35 miles long or write around 45,000 words. And the formula inside every single one of them, that precisely calibrated ratio of graphite to clay, fired in a kiln, is still essentially Nicolas Jacques Conté's formula from 1795. A one-eyed French soldier, under military pressure, in 6 days. That's the pencil we know today. If you enjoyed today's episode of Hidden History, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and comment below on another episode you'd like to see. Next week, we're uncovering the hidden history behind another invention you use practically every day. The pencil needs something to write on, and that story is older, darker, and more connected to how the world was built than you'd ever expect. Next week, we're uncovering the hidden history of paper. Now, take a look around. History is everywhere.